Lovelies, and welcome back to yet another installment of the Ages of Chaos, and welcome back to the Exaggerated Elegy channel. I've been away for a while, because I have not been feeling very well at all. You can probably still hear a little bit. I've still got a little bit of a throat infection, but I'm much, much better now. There's been a big installment in the Warhammer 40,000 universe lately, certainly with regards to the forces of chaos. They've had a massive shot in the arm lately. Not only have we had updates for the Thousand Sons and the Death Guard via chapter approved, there's a lot of shit going on now. Both of those forces and standard Chaos Space Marine forces have had the Armour of Contempt rule, as have all of the Imperial Space Marine forces, and what that effectively does is that it means any I don't know whether it pertains to both assault and long range, but basically any attack against them is always at -1 armor piercing, which is really, really good. When you combine that with the Thousand Sons, for example, with the Rubricae and Scarab Occult Terminators All Is Dust ability, which basically adds 1 to their armor saving throw against damage 1 weapons, it makes them really bloody durable. When you also consider they've also got 5+ invulnerable saves and multiple wounds apiece, that's bloody good. That's bloody good. On the Death Guard side, loads of units have had they've had glow-ups basically. So Plague Marine units now, all of their weapons and upgrades are free. That's amazing. That's absolutely incredible. Not only that, but Blightlord Terminators now have objectives secured, which makes them, alongside Scarab Occult Terminators from the Thousand Sons Codex, arguably some of the best Terminators in the game. Very, very cool. There's been similar things happening in the Thousand Sons, actually. So now the Icons of Flame, for example, on your Rubricae units are free. You just get them automatically, which is, again, fantastic. Warp Flamers, which are wonderful weapons, have been reduced significantly in points cost, which is really, really good. I mean, we've had some glow-ups. We really, really have. I've played several games with my Thousand Sons since the last video in 9th Ed, and I've played them against some of the nastier armies. I have to say, I've played them against Imperial Knights, I've played them against Custodes, and I've played them against the ultimate horror, the Tyranids, which is technically one of the top-tier codices at the moment in 9th Ed. And I've got to say, they're doing well. I like them a lot. They're an unusual codex. I wouldn't let someone who's just come into 40k play them, because they are very complex and very difficult and very but they're weighted towards particular strengths and very particular weaknesses. You've got to dominate the psychic and shooting phases to win, basically. So in that regard, they are highly specialist, but I'm loving what my Thousand Sons are capable of at the moment. They are my favourite army in 40k for lots of different reasons, and I've got to say, the way they are now represented, very, very, very pleased. Obviously, the big thing that's happened, alongside the last installment, which was the Chaos Knights, the new Chaos Space Marines Codex. This was a big one. People have been hankering after the new Chaos Space Marines Codex for literally months. It was a big deal that Chaos Space Marines were not one of the first out of the gate. For the last, 3 or 4 editions, they've been one of the first codices out of the gate, and that's always been bad for them. Always, always, always. It's always meant that they've had to be rejigged, they've had to have updates to make them workable, to make them function. Clearly, with 9th Ed, they wanted to undo that. They wanted to create something that has some proper conception and thought behind it, and I've got to say, having had the Chaos Space Marines Codex for a little while now, and read through it, I'm very impressed. I am very impressed. Aesthetically alone, this is one of my favourite codices in Ninth Ed. The artwork is gorgeous. Most of it is new, which is really lovely. For the first time in several editions, we've got some new cover art, and it's so evocative. It really does give you a feeling of where they want to take the Chaos Space Marines aesthetically and in terms of how they feel in 40k, and that is absolutely wonderful. The Codex is massive. It's absolutely massive. Basically what you've got here is your core Chaos Space Marine army list, along with all the background, and also the equivalents of mini supplements. Each of the established legions, barring the cult legions, barring the World Eaters, the Thousand Sons and the Death Guard, because they either have or are going to have their own codices very soon, all have their own little mini supplements in here. And I've got to tell you, this is the best the Chaos Space Marines have been in years. Years and years and years. First of all, the background is wonderful. Most of it is familiar. It's stuff like the Horus Heresy, it's the Scouring, it's the effects that the Warp has on Chaos Space Marines, it's Renegades and Traitors, it's Abaddon the Despoiler, the 13 Black Crusades, Demons and the Warp, all of that stuff. But woven through it is all of this really evocative artwork, and also these little bits of narrative that give you a real sense of the in-universe flavour of the Chaos Space Marines. Not only that, but most of this background material is not just copied and pasted from previous codices. It's a rewritten interpretation of that background, and it's a joy to read through. It really is. There's this whole section called the Traitor's Tarot, which is a little narrative piece which explores how the Chaos Space Marines operate. What they've done with the background is they've really tried to differentiate Chaos Space Marines from their loyalist kin. That seems to be a watchword throughout the Codex. They've listened. Again, it feels like that they've actually listened to the Chaos Space Marine fan base, the players, and they have listened to the principal concern, which is they don't just want spiky, watered-down versions of Imperial Marines. They want something different. And the background really does reflect that. They've gone so hard exploring psychologically what it means to be a Chaos Space Marine, to be a Traitor Marine, to be operating in the cultures of the Chaos Space Marines, whether they're the original Traitor Legions, whether they're Renegade warbands. There's also a lot more here, because there's been a big push on the mortal side of things, so the Chaos Cultists, there's a lot more going on with them here. There's a lot more background on the Chaos Cultists too, and how Chaos Cults formulate, how they function, how they come together, what it's like to exist within them. It's very, very cool. And once again, they've gone back. They've done what Chaos Space Marine players have been asking for God knows how long, and they've really refocused on the Legions. It's the Legions that people like, it's the Legions that people want, and obviously pride of place goes to the Black Legion, and they've got so much background in here, it's unbelievable. The Word Bearer is one of my personal favourites of the Undivided Legions, the Night Lords, the Alpha Legion, the Iron Warriors, they're all here alongside the Emperor's Children, who are the only cult legion in the book, because their own codex is going to happen, but not for a long time yet. So they are represented in here by their own little supplement list. And I tell you what, it would have been so easy to make the Emperor's Children like a get-you-by, like, afterthought. Not a bit of it. Not a bit of it. In fact, I would say the Emperor's Children, if you're going purely from a competitive standpoint, they're one of the stronger lists. They are one of the stronger lists, and one of the reasons for that is their ability to take Noise Marines as troops. Noise Marines now are wonderful. They are gonna be... You're gonna see Noise Marines in lots of armies, whether they are Emperor's Children or not. You're gonna see them because they have been rejigged massively. In fact, talking of the army list, everything has been rejigged. They've looked at practically everything, and they have refashioned it to make it not only viable, but to make it interesting, to make it work with regards to not only the other units in the army, but the army-wide special rules. So what, again, with regards to the rules, the watchword has clearly been, how do we make them different? How do we make them stand out and make them interesting against their Imperial counterparts? We don't just want them to be spiky, evil Space Marines. That starts, of course, with the core Chaos Space Marine unit, which are now, they even have their own name, which is Legionnaires. Yes, traitor Legionaries. That's what we want. That's what we love. And I tell you what, the traitor Legionaries are fantastic. Your core troop choice. They are superb now. After, I would say, at least 4 editions where they have been the compromise unit, where nobody wanted to take them over, say, cultist mobs or whatever, they are fantastic. Part of that is to do with how they function with regards to the army-wide special rule, which is absolutely wonderful. They have an army-wide special rule called, is it Slaves to Darkness? Let me just have a peek. I think Slaves to Darkness is actually another special rule. Let me have a look. We've got the Marks of Chaos, which now function, by the way. They're not just applications of keywords anymore. They actually have their own special rules, and they are good. They are all good. Every single damn one of them. Depending on the situation, depending on who you're fighting and what army you take, all of the Marks of Chaos have application now. Wonderful, right? Absolutely wonderful. We also have, alongside the Traitor Legions, there are 2 Renegade chapters that we can use. The Red Corsairs, obviously, and the Creations of Bile. So Fabius Bile has his own entire little mini-army now. Absolutely wonderful. And again, the temptation might have been to make them little get-you-by or appendix army lists. And yet, they have less than the established Traitor Legions, but what they've got is bloody good. I can foresee Red Corsairs and Creations of Bile being quite popular. I can see them being quite popular. Again, they are not as big or as expansive as the established Traitor Legions, but what they've got is fabulous. We'll explore that a little bit more in some of the appendix videos to this one. You've also got, Slaves to Darkness is the special rule that basically allows you to take the cult units. You know how in Chaos Space Marine forces, like your undivided Chaos Space Marine forces, you've always been able to take cult units? Well, you can do that here. There is overlap. You can actually take Rubricae from the Thousand Suns, you can take Khorne Berserkers from the World Eaters, you can take Plague Marines from the Death Guard, and you can take Noise Marines from the Emperor's Children. They're slightly different. They're not as good as they would be in their parent legions, but they are here, and that is really, really wonderful. There's so much going on here, it's unbelievable. But yeah, basically they've got an army-wide special rule, which is effectively their equivalent of the combat doctrines from Imperial Space Marines, because they are still Space Marines. That is something that has been acknowledged. They are still Space Marines. They're just perverted, corrupted, and altered from their Imperial cousins, right? So there is an army-wide special rule that basically means that they enter into different phases depending on what point in the battle they're at. So in turn 1, I believe they're in a state called wanton destruction at that point, I believe, and that basically means that they get exploding 6s from certain types of weapons. Then they go on to wanton, here we are, it's Let the Galaxy Burn. It's the Let the Galaxy Burn special rule. So it starts in wanton destruction, which is turn 1. That basically means that heavy rapid fire or grenade weapons, if you roll a 6 to hit, you gain an extra hit automatically. It's very bloody good with certain units. Wanton Massacre, that's between turns 2 and 3, I do believe. And basically that just changes the types of weapons that get the exploding 6s. It's rapid fire, assault, or pistol weapons. And then later on, towards the end of the game, when you've closed with the enemy and you're in close combat, it's assault, pistol, or melee weapons. They 6s score additional hits. It's really bloody good. In combination with the units that you've got and the Marks of Chaos, the stratagems, the different Legion traits that you've got, it's a fantastic way of establishing that these guys are ancient space marines. They're ancient, corrupted, insane space marines. It's really, really, really good. On top of that, they've got all the usual stuff. They've got like warp strike, which is their deep strike equivalent, malicious volleys, as all space marines have. It's a really wonderful way of making them feel like space marines but not, removed from their imperial counterparts, and it works very, very well. Talking about the Legion traits, I mean, I'm gonna do an appendix video for each of the Chaos Space Marine Legions because they really warrant it. But one thing I will say before we get to that is that there is not a duff one amongst them. That really impresses me. There is not a duff one. Some of them have weaker traits but better stratagems and better relics. Others have very, very strong traits but weaker relics or stratagems. That's the way it balances out, and I could see reasons for taking all of them beyond why I would take them, which is background. And by the way, I'd be going for either the Word Bearers, because I love the Word Bearers, or the Emperor's Children, because the Emperor's Children are my second favourite legion alongside the Thousand Sons. But each and every one of them is worthwhile. Each and every one of them has something going for them. The new rules for demon weapons. Demon weapons, they've never known what to do with them. They've always had trouble with demon weapons. They've always been too compromised to be worth what they do. Now, the way demon weapons work is demon weapons are not established artifacts. They are applications to pre-existing weapons. So you apply the particular demon weapon to a pre-existing weapon that the model is carrying, and that weapon retains all of its original rules, but also gains the special rules of the demon weapon. So it becomes enhanced. That is brilliant. That is absolutely wonderful. On top of that, you've also got loads of other relics and whatnot, which have wonderful, wonderful artwork associated with them, as well as specific relics for each of the legions, each of the renegade chapters. It's not half bad. Mutilators are gone, because they never could make them work. Mutilators have never had a place in the army. They've always had terrible rules. They've always had terrible models. So they are gone now. They've basically been spun into Obliterators, which is what they used to be. Obliterators fulfill all of the functions of Mutilators and then some. In fact, Mutilators are... Obliterators are amazing now. You're going to want to take them. That's for damn sure. As I say, there's hardly anything in the book that is redundant or lesser or doesn't have a place. There's all these wonderful new cultist units now. So there's accursed cultists, which are basically cultists that are better than they used to be. They're mutated and transformed and filled with demons, so they're wonderful. There's a lovely new HQ unit, the Dark Commune, and they are your cultist leaders. They are the demagogues and the psychers and the warriors who lead the cultists into battle. Absolutely wonderful. Dark Apostles are back and better than ever. You are definitely going to want to take Dark Apostles as in your HQ choices because they do so much for the army. They do so much. This is something that's been missing from core Chaos Space Marine armies for ages, and that is synergy. The dirty, naughty little tricks that so many other armies have. It's been absent, notably absent from Chaos Space Marine core Chaos Space Marine books for the longest time. Now there's loads of it. There's also just loads of quality of life updates and refinements. So do you remember like how Chaos Terminators, they always suffered from their second ed roots where they were this polyglot unit that every model had different weapons with different stats, so you had to roll like individually for each model. You don't have to do that anymore. Most of the close combat weapons have been rolled into one profile, which is accursed weapons, and they are good. They're very, very good. They more than make up for any any loss that you might have suffered because of the lack of like lightning claws or whatever. Accursed weapons are absolutely fine. All the specialist weapons are still here, like chain fists and power fists and whatnot. So you're not losing much. It just means that the unit is easier to use. The same is true of Chosen. Chosen are really, really good now. They've been refined, they've been updated massively, and they work very well. One of the biggest updates is to Possessed. Possessed have been an iconic unit since like the Realms of Chaos days, but they've never been able to get them right. They've never really worked in Warhammer 40,000, and have often just been a dump unit, like a unit nobody would ever take, and only modelled them for modelling purposes. Now they're amazing. They've basically gotten rid of like the distinction between lesser possessed and greater possessed. They're all greater possessed now. They've got a stat line that would shame the HQ units of most other armies. They are amazing. They move 9 inches, strength 5, toughness 5, 3 wounds, 5 attacks each. Their weapons are hideous mutations, which are armor-piercing 2, damage 2 weapons. They're very, very good, especially when you consider the synergies that you can use between them and some of the other characters, like the Master of Possession. I predict almost every army, every Chaos Space Marine army you see is going to have a Master of Possession in it somewhere, because he has access to the Malefic discipline, which targets and updates demonic units specifically. And the synergy between him and the demon units in your army is profound. It's really profound. Everything here is good. Everything. I mean, Warp Talons. Nobody used to take Warp Talons because they were just too expensive for what they did. Now, I imagine people are going to take big units of them. They're still expensive, but they're amazing. They are absolutely amazing. They are 2 wound, 5 attack jump pack units armed with lightning claws. On top of that, they've got the Galaxy Burn special rule. So with those 5 attacks each, they're going to be doing exploding 6s if you get them into combat towards the end of the game. Pretty incredible. Pretty damn incredible. Everything's had a glow up. The Land Raider, which nobody used to take nobody takes, now it's back in the game. It's got greater toughness, it's got better weapons. The Predator Annihilator is the same. These tanks that nobody was taking because they were basically just dump units, again, glowed up massively. It really feels like for the first time a lot of thought has been put into this book. The characters, the special characters are great now. Abaddon is insane. I would say Abaddon is for narrative play only, because he is... On a good day, he can take down the likes of Imperial Knights on his own. He is badass. He brings so much, not only to Black Legion armies, but to Chaos Space Marine armies in general. He's pretty damn incredible, I've got to say. I just cannot get over the glow-up. He's basically... I'm sure you must have seen some of the battle reports out there where he's gone up against Robert Gilliman. And I'm sorry to say, but Robert just isn't on the same level anymore. Abaddon is insane now, as he should be. He is the War Master of all chaos, He's the Lord of the Eye of Terror. He's supposed to be that badass. Fabius Bile is wonderful now. Not only is he fantastic in and of himself, but his abilities to upgrade other units within your army is pretty damn good, because he permanently upgrades them now. If they get their +1 toughness or +1 strength or whatever, they get it forever. So, pretty damn good. I'm sure you'll agree. Lucius the Eternal, who is the only one, by the way, who really does need his new model coming, because much as I love that old Cenobite model, it's really old now and could do with a little bit of an update. But Lucius is an assassin. He's a character killer. If you get him into combat with almost any character in the game, he's going to kill them. He's going to rip them to pieces. He is very, very, very nice indeed. There's very little in here to complain about. There are a few little odd choices that have been made because of the, Games Workshop don't produce models for them or whatever, and they are annoying, they're little nitpicky things. But beyond that, I've got to say, I am very impressed with this codex. And people generally seem to be very impressed with it. Not only has it got tons of theme, tons of flavour, not only has it done what Chaos Space Marine Codices should have been doing for the last, 3 or 4 editions, it's good. It is not as, over-the-top killer as the Tyranids, but it's good. You're going to start seeing Chaos Space Marine armies being used competitively again, which is really, 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 really wonderful to see. And it gives me lots of hope for what's coming with the Demons Codex as well, because it's very clear there's going to be a little bit of synergy between this codex and that codex, not to mention the Thousand Sons, the Death Guard, and the World Eaters when they eventually come out. So, yeah, very impressed, my loves. This is a great book, well worth picking up. Stay tuned, because I'm going to be doing more specific videos on each of the traitor legions and how they're represented in this book, because for the first time, arguably in many years, it's worth doing. It is actually worth looking at each of those sub-armies in and of themselves. So, we'll start, obviously, at the beginning with the Ultramarines equivalent, with the Principal Legion. We'll start with Abaddon's own warband, the Black Legion. So stay tuned for that. Until then, bye-bye!